Michael Acton Smith has built global businesses from deceptively simple ideas.
We don't stop playing because we get old. We get old because we stop playing.
In 2012, Michael co-founded Calm, a company on the mission to support people on their mental health journey.
Calm, is a very simple idea. Taking this simple idea, but sprinkling a bit of magic and fun and playfulness.
Calm is valued at over $2 billion, with more than 150 million downloads and tens of millions of monthly users. Along the way, it has helped bring meditation, sleep, and mental fitness into the mainstream, becoming both a commercial success and a cultural movement.
I love creativity, as you do, and it can show up in so many different ways, but I think business and entrepreneurship is just such an amazing way to bring one's creativity.
Michael's work is a reminder that sometimes the most creative thing you can do is less. That's Michael Acton Smith. Welcome to the Business of Creativity series, brought to you by Amazon Ads. Michael.
John.
Looking at what you've done, 3 major organizations: Firebox, Mind Candy, out of which came Moshi Monsters, and now Calm. Now, there aren't many entrepreneurs. I'm going to call you an entrepreneur. I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I think that's a good thing.
But this is all about trying to get people to understand why, if you've got a great idea, you should do it, why you shouldn't be afraid of doing it, and getting them to understand that there's nothing wrong with failure on the way. Not that I'm saying you failed, but what
I have many times. Don't worry, we can get to that.
We get to the failures. But what I loved about what you've done is, Firebox was essentially dealing with physical goods because you were retailing, and then Mind Candy was dealing with kind of entertainment and fun, and Calm is online as well. What did you take from Firebox into Mind Candy, into Calm, and what was different about it?
Good question. Yeah, I've often thought, is there a golden thread running between all these different businesses? I think at the essence, what I love doing is creating fun businesses, playfulness, bringing a bit of silliness into something that could be seen as quite serious. And I think that is the best way to build a business. It creates products that are more memorable, more shareable, and building them is more fun as well. There's a lot of very serious businesses out there. I'm sure you've come across a fair few, run by committees and process and cost cutting and on. But why not have fun while building these companies? And I've always been hugely inspired by Branson and what he did with Virgin. And he talks about this idea of magic. And we've tried to sprinkle a little bit of magic in everything we've built. Magic is hard to define, but it's that dusting of sort of stardust that elevates anything from the humdrum to the interesting. It doesn't need to cost a lot of money, but it's the bit that you take away with you, that you remember, that makes you smile. And I think that's what sets the great companies apart from the average companies.
So that, what's really interesting about that is that people view business as serious, don't they? And, what you're so rightly saying is have fun.
Yes.
That will inject something into what you're doing that actually will possibly create this magic.
Yeah.
Which is good. Was there anything in your background that said, I am going to be an entrepreneur? Did you come from an entrepreneurial family, or was it just within you?
Good question. Not a hugely entrepreneurial family, but I just loved creating things and coming up with ideas. When I was younger, I was always having silly, harebrained ideas. I did a BMX stunt show in my front garden that no one came along to.
A BMX stunt show?
Yes.
You didn't get badly injured?
No, I didn't get injured, but yeah, it was 10p to come and watch me, and no one came, which was quite disappointing. I had a ZX Spectrum computer. Do you remember those rubber keyed?
Sinclair.
Just amazing. That just blew my mind and opened up so much possibility. And I created a magazine that I would take into school and try and sell to my peers. Again, that was not very successful. I think the peak circulation was about 3 or 4 copies.
Mum and dad, obviously.
Exactly, that accounted for half of them. Washing cars, selling apples, all these things. And I just loved taking ideas and trying to turn them into businesses and seeing what would happen.
You see, that's really, I find that fascinating because it starts very young. You know, in a way, you're looking at life and you're looking at how can I create something here? It's active, not passive.
Yes.
And I find so many businesses quite passive. They're not active. They're not moving forward. I mean, I spent time working with large corporations when you'd present them with an idea and it would take 6 or 7 months or 8 months before they would approve it. It would go through all sorts of processes. I always used to think, well, just why don't you just do something? Do something is better than nothing. So that sense of just getting out there, doing things started at a very early age, a BMX stunt park.
And I think I learned that, it doesn't matter if it fails and goes wrong, at least you're trying. And you only need to get it right once in life to have huge success. You can fail many times. And I think when you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to create new products and ideas, you've got to be playing at the edge. You've got to be in that zone where people think you're slightly crazy. And again, you will screw up many more times than you succeed. But those moments where you do crack it changes everything.
But how did you cope with that moment when that didn't work? Were you, in a sense, knocked back? What went on in your mind that said, no, don't worry about that. That's just one of those things. I'm going to go again.
Yeah, I think you have to have a fair bit of resilience and confidence, not to be afraid of looking stupid and foolish. And I've had some wins with businesses over the years, but many that haven't worked as well, that have been really, really tough. And I've been burnt out and fried and waking up at 4 a.m. in the morning, just so frustrated with something that isn't clicking. And you just have to dust yourself off and accept that, have a little rest and then come back and try something new.
And the danger there, of course, is that, you do something, you think it's very funny, amazing, fun, whatever, it doesn't work. And a little bit of your brain goes, not so much fun next time. Maybe not so much. And that's the thing you've got to fight, isn't it? That little thing in the back, play it safe. Yes. And safe is kind of where collapse comes.
Exactly. And I think that happens to companies, as you say, when they get bigger, maybe when the founder steps away, and then businesses are run by committees, and instead of taking the risks, they play the safe path ahead, which the fun gets drained out, and often companies lose their way at that stage.
So what got you to Firebox, which was your first big thing? Did you look at the market and go, wow, there's a gap here, or is it just something you felt? How did it?
Yeah, so I had a very good friend from university, Tom Boardman, and we finished university. We got sensible jobs for a little bit.
Where did you go to university?
Birmingham.
Studying
in the Midlands. I had no idea what I wanted to be when I grew up, and so I just chose geography because it seemed reasonably fun.
And you'd know where you were.
Exactly, and I love maps and exploring and very curious.
So you studied geography.
And watched Wall Street, the movie, and thought I wanted to become an investment banker. So I got a role in the city for a little bit, but realised that wasn't quite for me, wasn't creative enough. And Tom and I would talk about ideas, and we were in a bookshop in Cardiff, and we came across this book, I think it was 1998, and it was called Doing Business on the Internet. And this internet thing, almost 30 years ago, sounded quite exciting and fun. So we bought it, we read it, and thought, wow, let's create an internet company. And that was the starting point to Firebox. And we thought, could we sell toys and games and gadgets and fun stuff over the internet instead of through a shop or a mail order catalogue? And it seemed a bit crazy and wild, but that was the very first kind of proper business that I launched. I think being a good entrepreneur, when you've got an idea, is about researching it, marinating yourself in it, thinking about it from different angles, going to shows, conferences, chatting to experts, reading books, documentaries. Suddenly the dots start to connect, and you start to feel, hang on, there's an opportunity here. There's something going on. The timing is right. That's the moment when you go, okay, let's dive headfirst into that. And you don't need to have it all worked out. You just need to have the rough space that you're playing in, because you'll learn so much once you hit the market.
But that requires a degree of humility when there's a kind of a sort of emerging of humility and arrogance in a way, isn't there? But then you kind of have to go, well, I'm going to listen to that, not that. I'm going to listen to that person, not this idea, that person. And then you have to so you start with humility, and then there's got to be a degree of arrogance, hasn't there? This is it.
Going to go for, yes, you're right. I think you need to start with beginner's mind. This idea that kids have, this wide-eyed curiosity that anything is possible. I think the worst thing you can do in business is, if you've been doing it for years, just think you know exactly how things go. Oh, we don't do it that way. This is the process. So I love coming into a new industry and trying to figure it out and approach it from a new angle. And I don't think there's ever been a more exciting moment in history as AI turns everything on its head. So it is terrifying and exhilarating at the same time.
And going back to your thing about, you don't necessarily have to be an expert in that industry. They talk about creative ignorance, don't they? This idea that you approach a problem or a business with an open mind completely, and say, well, why are they doing it like that? That constant question of asking why. So this essence of creativity was very, very embedded naturally in your thinking, the way you went.
Absolutely. And I love creativity as you do, and it can show up in so many different ways. But I think business and entrepreneurship is just such an amazing way to bring one's creativity. You start with that blank sheet of paper or a napkin, and then you just create from nothing. You come up with a logo and the name and the team and the products. And I just think it's every day is different and exciting and unusual. It's not all plain sailing. You definitely have huge knockbacks and problems along the way, but I couldn't think of a more fascinating way to go through life than building companies.
Now, I spent my life talking to large organizations and businesses and that. And if you talk to them about, when you came in as the creative person, everybody leaned back, oh God, here come the long hairs, or whatever they say. Oh, I'm not going to understand anything they say. As though you were some alien. But yet, business is a constant creative act. But you've got to constantly innovate. Constantly innovate, which is, at the core of that, is creativity. And businesses sort of haven't embraced it. They don't. Creativity and business are not the same things.
It's so true. The brilliant book, Innovator's Dilemma, teaches us companies get very, very good at doing one thing. They perfect it. The process is humming like a machine. But the world changes. Markets change, consumer tastes change, laws change. And so the companies that don't adapt and change die. And we've seen it, many, many, many times, from Blockbuster Video to Kodak photography. So the creative mix needs to be a very important part of all companies. But you can't just be wide-eyed, long-haired creativity, because then nothing would get done. The trains wouldn't run on time. The balance is the magic. And we often talk about at Calm how we like to be data-informed instead of data-driven, where you do everything by the numbers, and instead of just wild-eyed creative instinct driving everything, you're in the middle, that data-informed. You look at the data, but you can also make those big left field leaps if you have a strong idea. We
should constantly look at data as knowledge, isn't it? It's knowledge. It's what's happening out there. And then from that, you go, well, this is interesting. We could do this with it or that with it. I mean, my only concern with that, there is a kind of danger that once you let data in the room, you know, it's a bit like, no, I'm not going to suggest we take drugs at all, but it's like somebody who just takes a little hit of something to make them feel better. Oh, it's a little bit, I feel better. Then the next day it's a little bit more and a little bit more. And my big concern is once it's in the room, it begins to kind of become a crutch that people spend a little bit more time listening to and talking to. I mean, iPhone, no data, none at all, Nokia had all the data, make it smaller. Well, that did them a lot of good, didn't it? I mean, And, talking to James Dyson, the brilliant thing, there was no data to say make a better vacuum cleaner. Everybody was very happy with their vacuum cleaners. In fact, they never talked about them.
Yeah.
So I understand your point, be data informed, not data driven. I do slightly push back on this, that once you let that beast in the room, ooh.
Again,
and how do you control that?
Again, like a lot of things in business, it's that delicate balance, isn't it? I think data is incredibly valuable, and we've never had more access to data than ever before, and it can be overwhelming. And you're right, it can take control of everything. But if you treat it with respect and you look at the data and you understand it, you can listen to it or not. And I think the big leaps in business, that the really wild creative ideas, don't come from just looking at what the data is telling you. They come from God knows where crazy, wild, left field ideas come from, but they come from a completely different place.
Yeah. It's fine. Yes, I suppose you could argue it's finding the odd bits of data that might just spark something.
Here's an example. So Calm started with meditations and mindfulness, and we launched the Daily Calm, and we saw good growth, but we still hadn't broken through and had our kind of real sort of exponential growth. And we were looking at the data, and we noticed that people were using our meditations in the evenings at like 10, 11 o'clock at night. There was a big spike all around the world. And we thought, that's strange. That's not when you're meant to meditate. But we realized what was happening is people loved Tamara Levitt's voice so much, our meditator, that it soothed them and it helped them drift off to sleep. It calmed their racing mind. And so we thought, well, what if we could create sort of calming bedtime stories for adults? And from that leap, we created the Sleep Stories, which is now the most successful part of Calm. About 2/3 of usage in the app is sleep stories, and a little bit of data informed combined with creative thinking created something really special.
I mean, because people do think sometimes that creativity and data are kind of in conflict with each other. They're not really. If you look at great pieces of art, and I look at art and I look at artists as business people, because they had to sell what they were doing.
Yes.
It was, Garrett, you want, nice light, but, you needed to eat.
Indeed.
But what they did is that they listened to their own vibe and created something completely new. So you're looking for that combination.
Yes.
That combination of kind of data says this, but what about that?
Yeah. Data and creativity, I think, are not opposites. They're more bedfellows. And I think that the best businesses combine both with a special mix.
So going back then, Firebox, brilliant, did that. And then what made you go, no, I want to do something else? What was the kind of process? Again, it was this creative spirit of kind of, I want to keep experimenting, keep playing.
Yeah, I'm always kind of doodling and dreaming and thinking of new ideas. And I love Firebox, but one of my other passions was games. I mentioned the ZX Spectrum when I was younger. I think games and playfulness are just brilliant. I love everything from chess to backgammon to Scrabble to you name it. And so I wanted to create a new games company. And this is about 20 years ago, just as the internet was starting to grow. And I thought, what if you could create games that were not one player or two player, but could be played by dozens, hundreds, thousands, even millions of people online. So we created Mind Candy, and our first game was called Perplex City, where we buried a treasure somewhere around the world. We said there was a $200,000 reward for the first person that found it, and we released clues across all sorts of different media, from classified ads in newspapers to helicopters to crop circles to actors at events. That was an amazingly creative
So remind
adventure.
me, was it a physical product you placed, or was it all online?
No, it was a mix of both.
A mix of both.
There were fake websites, there was story, but you had to find this treasure that we buried, this silver cube, in a field somewhere in England. And I was inspired by a book called Masquerade. I don't know if you remember
Masquerade,
that. Just
wonderful.
amazing. Pre-internet, and went super viral back in the 70s, I think. And so, yes, so this was just an unbelievably exciting experience. Probably the most creative thing I've ever worked on, but one of the most commercially challenging things. So it didn't work, sadly.
Did you look back on that? Do you look back on it and go, why? Or do you just go, Wrong time, wrong moment, didn't quite connect.
No, I've spent countless hours soul searching, trying to figure out what went wrong, doing postmortems. And I think when something doesn't work, it's usually not a single reason. There's usually a bunch. But I think the essence of this was that we built something that was just a little too niche. It was too complex. The puzzles were too difficult. People loved the concept. We won awards. We got a lot of press. But we couldn't get a mainstream audience to play this game. And so because there weren't enough people playing, we couldn't generate enough revenue, and it didn't work. I don't regret it for a second. It was just a fascinating experience. I worked with brilliant people. And from the ashes of Perplex City, Moshi Monsters.
Moshi Monsters, yes. Now let's talk, because that was absolutely brilliant.
Oh, thank you. So within the world of Perplex City, there were these characters and stories, and the world was all based around puzzles. And parents would tell their children that if they didn't go to sleep at night and they didn't study, the puzzle monsters would get them in the middle of the night. Quite scary. And I really...
Poor kids,
I know,
terrified.
there was something about this idea of puzzle monsters that really resonated with me. And I thought, well, what if Perplex City hasn't worked, but what if we take the puzzle monsters and we build a kids' world, and kids can solve puzzles and play games and adopt little puzzle monsters, and maybe there's something there. So I took it to the board, and they were all like scratching their heads.
So you had a board then. You had to deal with a kind of corporate organization.
Exactly. And, they had invested about $10 million into me. So I did have to respect, and I certainly did. They had a major say, as they should. And so I said, look, Perplex City hasn't worked. We're down to our last $1 million. We can either give the money back, or I've got this new crazy idea. Why don't we take one last swing of the bat and try this world of puzzle monsters, which we changed to the name Moshi Monsters. And so they were all like, okay, let's give it a go and see what happens. It wasn't an overnight success. It took about a year or so. And then suddenly something started to click, and Moshi took off like a rocket.
The more truthful a piece of communication, the more power it has. Which is why I applaud hotel brand Premier Inn's promise that you know what you're getting with Premier Inn. People don't stay there for luxury, even for the price point. It's for the consistency it offers. But how do you create buzz around a comfortable bed, a clean room? One answer is stage a live Twitch stream.
Am I live? Am I streaming?
Night at Premier Inn took a British creator, blindfolded him and placed him in a mystery Premier Inn. People tuning in could vote on what happened during his stay, while he tried to figure out where he was. The event delivered over 881,000 unique viewers. And most importantly, he fell asleep on live stream, proving that you really do know what you're getting with Premier Inn. Learn more about custom campaigns with Brand Innovation Lab at advertising.amazon.com. What was it that made it click? Can you identify that, or was it just it got to a certain level and then like nuclear fission, it takes off? Or
it is so hard, isn't it? You know, you've seen this many times in your career. It's so hard to know how you capture lightning in a bottle, why something works and something doesn't. I've always thought the best way to create ideas is to look at the history and look what has worked in the past and then put a twist on it. So for Moshi Monsters, we looked at Tamagotchi. Tamagotchi had been enormous, super popular. Remember those little pet key rings? And I thought that was brilliant and people loved it. Could we create a pet like that in the age of the internet, where you could adopt your own little pet, not on a key ring, but on a computer? So that was the little twist. And again, it started slowly, and kids loved the idea of having their own little pet, you know, easier than a dog or a cat in the real world. Parents loved it because kids would go to the puzzle palace every day and solve puzzles to earn the currency that enabled them to buy new things for their pet. And we called it stealth education because kids were learning, but they were having fun while they were learning. I think the essence of something that was super fun for kids, parents approved of, was the kind of the ingredients that were the foundation that helped Moshi become a big success.
And so putting those two things together actually creates this huge success.
Exactly. And a lot of people said in the early days, who are your academics you've got on board? Where are the educational experts telling you how to do this? And we were like, no, we're not going to lead with the education. We're going to lead with the fun. Because if it's not fun, if kids don't want to come back to this every day and share it in the playground, we're not going to get anywhere.
We interviewed this wonderful, wonderful child psychologist who talked about the importance of play, and that how play is how we develop as children. It teaches us all kinds of things. And then she said, and the trouble is we lose that when we get into our later life. And she said that the way to educate is to keep playing, because we actually earn so much that you can do.
So true. I remember back in the early days of Firebox, one of our mantras was, we don't stop playing because we get old. We get old because we stop playing. And how many people, when they grow up, they put on their suits, they go to work, put childish things aside, they stop playing, and they become super serious, and they get bored and fed up and frustrated. And if you can weave a bit of fun and playfulness into modern life as an adult, I think you're doing okay.
And the other thing too about that, which I think is that when you're having fun, it unlocks the imagination.
Yes.
So you come up actually with better ideas. Fear is not a great way of creating ideas.
No, agreed.
There we are. So that Moshi does it. And then it kind of, it faltered, didn't it?
It did. Well, it was the most extraordinary journey. It was just incredible. We had the website where kids were adopting their monsters, tens and tens of millions of monsters around the world. We created a magazine that became the best-selling magazine in the UK, toys, books, a music album, a movie with Universal. So we were building this big IP. Disney came and we're having some conversations about maybe buying us. And I thought, no, we're going to be the next Disney, in my arrogance. But what happened was we didn't recognize that the world was changing, and we had built Moshi for desktop computers, and mobile phones came along and iPads came along, and we didn't have a good solution for those new platforms. And Moshi went from being the cool thing in the playground to not so cool. And the rapid growth came down, and so that was super difficult and stressful.
And there's a great lesson there, isn't it? Is that, I always say, principles remain, but practices change. And you've just got to know when something is changing, and not become, I'm not saying you became complacent, but sometimes these things can overtake you.
Totally, yeah.
Without you realizing it, you suddenly go, my God, it's all changed.
You can rest on your laurels. You can think, we're doing something right, let's just keep doing it. I think Apple is a great example. Look at the way in the Steve Jobs era, they went from the iPod to the iPhone, to the iPad, to the AirBuds, to on and on and on, constantly layering on top innovation after innovation. And those are the greatest companies in the world. Not easy to do, but if you keep creative people right at the top of the business, you keep that fun and that magic alive, then I think you stand a great chance of innovating success after success.
And I think, again, you make a very good point there about making sure you have creative people in the boardroom, come in with a different thought, and kind of always are trying to make things better. I think that's the driving force of a creative brain. You're never happy with what you've created. There's always something wrong with it. And you've always got this desire. I mean, artists are the great innovators.
Yeah, completely agree. Looking at things from a different perspective, from a different lens. What if we tried this? Well, we've always done it this way. Well, what if we just gave that a shot?
And we're entering a world, aren't we, where it's going to be easier to try things.
Yes.
It's going to be, because, so much business now is sort of online. There's a book called Living on Thin Air, The New Economy. And basically it's about how so much of what we do hasn't got a physical presence. It's online. Increasingly, software is a fundamental driver of business. And that you can change overnight. You can just go, I'm going to have that idea. So this sense of constant curiosity, awareness of having ideas and exploring is going to become ever more important.
And in the age of AI, You can create at the speed of thought. Never before has it been possible to have an idea 1 minute and 10 minutes later, put it out to the world. And the downside to that, of course, is there is a sea, a wash of ideas and characters and you name it. So the really good stuff is going to have to fight even harder to break through the noise.
So greater difference, greater belief, innovation. So that's it, Moshi. And then instead of going, I am going to retire and become a sheep farmer, you go...
Was that on your agenda?
No, never. Never.
No, I might retire to an island and
never
play
retire.
tennis. No, is
never
that
retire.
good? That is good advice, actually. Okay,
that's pulling
I'll
the
wait.
plug out, isn't it?
Yeah.
Pull the plug out. You're
Fast
now in the
decline.
waiting room.
Yeah.
That's it. We'll see you now. Bye. I'm gone. So you then go, I'm going to do Calm.
Yes.
And so take us through that then.
So Moshi Monsters was this incredible ride up and then very, very challenging when it came down. Moshi is still going and love those little characters, but it's not quite as big as it used to be. And I took a bit of a step back. I'll be honest, I was really fried and burnt out. I don't know if you've ever had this in your career, but I went away for a little while, a week or two on my own, and I just rested.
Hold on, I just want to say a week or two. Most people would be a year.
Well, yeah, maybe I should have done, but I took a mini break, but that was enough. I was able to get some good sleep. And I have a dear friend, Alex Chu, who told me and taught me about meditation. And I didn't fully understand it. I thought, like a lot of people, it was a bit woo-woo and a bit weird and part of the counterculture. But I started researching and marinating and reading books and research papers. And I realized meditation was a way of rewiring the mind. And I thought, could this be a way of helping people find more balance, more equanimity, more calm in a world that was getting more and more stressful and intense? Our attention is just assailed constantly. So both of us thought Calm could be an amazing new brand that we could build. So that was the kind of the kernel. And I came back from my trip refreshed, reset, and ready to do something new. So that was the starting point of Calm.
You know, I talk about creativity as an expression of self, and it's being aware of what's going on within you to come out with your ideas. And so this idea came out from what was happening to you.
Yes.
And again, that sort of sense of listening to yourself to come up with the next idea, an important step.
Yeah, I think those are often the best businesses and brands built by entrepreneurs that are scratching their own itch. It's something very innate and very deep and meaningful to them because you truly deeply understand the problem that you're trying to solve. Paul Graham from Silicon Valley is a genius, and I think I always remember the way he sums up building a business as build something people want. And
simple, isn't it?
Pretty simple, but when you stop and think about it, it's true. How many entrepreneurs raise a ton of money building something that just it is not needed? And so when you're building something people want, start with yourself. Do you want that? Is that you're the first customer? And if you start there, then maybe you'll find a few more, and then you can grow to millions after that.
I like that too. Have faith in yourself and faith in where you're coming from.
Bill Gurley's new book that I'm reading, Running Down a Dream, I think it's called, with advice for people early in their career. He says, often you said, follow your passion. And he said, that's fair enough. But he said, a better word is follow your fascination. If you're fascinated by something, you're going to do the deep research and you're going to be able to stick at something long before everyone else has given up. If you're fascinated, months turn into years, turn into decades. And that's how you build the world-changing businesses.
So now we have, with Calm, a brilliant success. Of course, again, looking at it, I could look at it and go, timing was absolutely perfect. In fact, it's kind of needed even more. When did you found Calm? How long ago?
Oh, about 14 years ago.
14 years ago.
Alex and I set it up. And if anything, it was probably, could have been a little bit early because we'd tell people this idea at events and parties and they'd start backing away from us.
Steady.
we're gonna teach people to meditate, be mindful, and like don't want to get caught in the corner talking to these guys.
A cult is coming.
Exactly. And then when we talked to investors, they were like, "You'll never make money from that. You can get meditation free on YouTube, and how on earth will anyone pay for that?" So it did feel a bit too weird and a bit too early. Our rivals Headspace had started a little bit before us, so there was signal that something was going on, but we felt the world, as I say, was getting more stressful, that Calm could be one of the most valuable and meaningful brands in the whole world. Could we do what Nike did the Nike of the mind? They'd done it for the body. They started with running and expanded. And this is pretty important up here. Everything begins up here. So could we build that kind of brand?
So when you had that, you were pitching it and people said, "Oh, no, you'll never make money." What was your answer to that?
Well, we were pitching in Silicon Valley. Alex and I moved to California because we just felt the investors would be a bit more receptive to a strange idea like this. But even then, it was very difficult. I think about 100 investors we spoke to, and only a handful invested in our seed round. So I think it was partially because we weren't very good at telling the story. I don't think we were painting a big enough vision and picture. And it took a while before we were able to launch the app, and then we were able to get subscribers on the app. And even then, it took years for us to do a Series A round of investment. It was a very, very challenging business to get going.
And that's staying committed to it, understanding that it's going to work, having faith, keeping the faith, so to speak.
That is so, so important. I think one of the key traits of great entrepreneurs is that resilience, believing in your idea when people are telling you it's rubbish, when no one will invest, when you can't even hire people to join, and just knowing, okay, we kind of felt, we knew there was something here, and we kept saying, we just got to wait for the market to wake up to it. We'll just keep going, keep building, and when it does, we were in the right place at the right time, and then the growth just went hockey stick. It was extraordinary.
Is there a moment when you looked at it and said, "That's when it happened"?
I wish there was one specific moment. It was just a compounding multiple things, and you're in the right space when the press start to pick up on something. So again, in the early days, we couldn't get anyone to write about Calm. Meditation and mindfulness was just dismissed, and then there were a couple of articles, and then a few more, and then celebrities started tweeting about using Calm, and then we got Matthew McConaughey to record a sleep story, and then suddenly, that was probably, if I had to choose one specific inflection point, that might have been it. We created these sleep stories to help you fall asleep at night, and we thought, wouldn't it be amazing if celebrity voices read them? But we spoke to lots of people in Hollywood, and no one was willing to record for the app. And then eventually Matthew McConaughey did, and it was unbelievably popular, and suddenly everyone started banging on our door. We got a lot of press attention, and things really took off from then.
And there's another example there, isn't it? It's that was a really good idea. Couldn't get people to do it. Doesn't mean the idea is bad. You've just got to keep at it. Yes. There will be somebody who will go, "Yes, I want this. Keep going, keep going, keep going." Yeah. And now, of course, Calm is flying. You're talking about doing all kinds of other things. You're talking about characters that we talked about earlier on that you're creating. So giving it a greater kind of physical presence, even though it's still online, I can feel it, see it, has become quite important.
It has, yeah. So we've been so busy over the last decade or so building the digital version of Calm, but we've always wanted to take Calm offline as well. We want to bring Calm to people wherever they are, on or off. So we've asked the question for years, what would Calm look like as a clothing brand, or a drink, or a hotel, or a house, on and on. So we're in the kind of really fascinating phase at the moment of seeing, can we take this loved and trusted digital brand and expand it offline? And to go back to Branson, I think he's such a great example. He started, I think, as a magazine, and then a record label and a shop, and has expanded Virgin into so many different areas.
And it doesn't matter if he fails.
No,
if he fails, he moves on.
Many have failed, and I think we have to take that same philosophy as well. And I think in this modern age where change is constant and no one knows what's around the corner, and stress is all around us, and we're in the attention economy, could Calm be one of the most important brands of this era? Because we need that. We feel calm as a superpower. And, from a place of calm, we're better leaders, our relationships are better, we sleep better.
I think we've quite a few people who should be adopting Calm.
Well, send them to the app, and we'll give them a subscription. But yes, so that's the exciting next phase.
This is so important. So you talk a lot about there's never been a better time, really, to be an entrepreneur. When you look around you, you look at what you can do, what you can create. What would your advice be to somebody now again?
Well, I would say follow your fascination. What are you personally really interested in? Go deep, learn as much as you can about that. AI, again, is such a great collaborator and thought partner. Ask question, back and forth you go, tweaking, refining. And don't just do this over days, weeks. It might take months. It might even take years for that idea to emerge. And then look at the past. Look at the successful patterns of the past. What are human beings interested in? What have been successful businesses? Take those and then put a modern twist on it, whatever that might be, that little click that suddenly creates something new and interesting. Think from the customer's perspective first. How can you create something that takes away friction and sprinkle in a bit of joy and magic? There you go. Yeah, that's how you create billion-dollar ideas. Super easy, John.
Yeah, yeah, just go off and do it now. But you did say something, I think, again, very important there, that looking back and learning doesn't mean that you're going to do it like those people, but just lessons from who have done things before. Yes. And I think we are in danger of a world where everybody goes, it's all new, it's all invented. But that sense of looking back and learning is important as well.
Yeah, what worked, what didn't work. And sometimes things are brilliant ideas, but they're in the wrong time. Do you remember the early innings of the internet where we had pets.com and, supermarket shopping online, and they were huge failures. Tens of millions of dollars were pumped into these business. They weren't bad ideas. They were just a little bit too early. And now, the timing is right. Yeah. And so what are ideas that maybe didn't work in the past, but could work in this modern age in 2026?
Brilliant. Michael, that's just absolutely wonderful.
What a fun and fascinating chat, John. Thank you.
Lovely. I'm feeling very calm too, actually, which is rather good. And really, it is powerful to have an idea that not only is commercially successful, but also is a kind of win-win. We've come from a world where it's, I beat you and I put you down and I succeed, and we use like warfare almost. We talk about campaigns and things like that. And what you're creating is a kind of a product where it seems to me everybody wins, and that's a lovely thing and a great place to be.
Yeah, that's so true. To be able to build a business that has a commercial engine that is obviously generating revenue and profit and growth, but also is good for the world. And the more money we make, the more people we can reach, and round it goes. I think that's a really powerful place to be. And if I may, I don't know if we can just jump back to this quickly, because I think it is a good point. Calm, is a very simple idea, but I think and this hopefully is relevant for anyone watching and listening, but we did sprinkle creativity into an idea that had been around for thousands of years, and sleep stories were that key moment. But just a few other examples of where we just did something new and creative. We created a sleep story based on GDPR. Do you remember the boring GDPR legislation? Yeah. And we thought, what if we turned that into a story to help people fall asleep? We had dozens and dozens of articles written about it. Then we worked with a brilliant PR leader called Peter Friedman, and he came up with the idea of something called Baba Land, after the film La La Land. And we put sheep in a field and we filmed them for 8 hours and created Baba Land, an 8-hour movie. We had a premiere in Leicester Square with sheep in bow ties and a red carpet. An idea that would have never got past a committee, but we did it. We got tons of PR for it. And so taking this simple idea, but sprinkling a bit of magic and fun and playfulness is how you break through the noise when everyone is after your attention. And I think that is one of the key things that anyone listening needs to do for their business.
Wonderful. Baba Land. I like that. That's really, that's absolutely great. Michael, again, Brilliant. Thank you very much. And
thank you. What a fun
congratulations on
chat.
your success. It's inspirational. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
If you want to explore how creativity can work for you, head over to thebusinessofcreativity.com. See you next time.